Before we begin the story, let us know where you're watching from by leaving a comment below. If you enjoy this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy the story. Lila was at her limit. She hadn't eaten properly in 3 days, and hunger mixed with exhaustion like a constant weight on her shoulders. Her feet ached inside her worn-out sneakers, and her stomach growled so loudly that she had to hug herself just to muffle the sound. She wandered aimlessly, scanning every corner of the city, looking for a help-wanted sign or someone willing to give her a chance anything. A cleaning job, a delivery, a fresh start. She just needed an opportunity. As she bent down to fix her shoelace, she spotted something unusual on the ground. A dark leather wallet, sleek and expensive-looking, lying right next to a streetlight. She picked it up carefully. When she opened it, Lila's heart raced. It was stuffed with cash bills neatly folded, so many that she didn't even try to count. Just one of them would be enough to buy herself a decent meal. With all that money, she could get off the streets, rent a small room, buy new clothes, start over. Her chest tightened. That wallet could change her life. But along with the cash, there were also documents and a business card. The name on the card made her eyes widen. James Carter. She knew that name. He was one of the most influential businessmen in the country, the owner of a billion-dollar company. And right there in her hands were his personal details, including his home address. Lila took a deep breath, fighting with her own thoughts. The need was overwhelming, but inside her, something spoke even louder, her grandmother's voice, repeating the words she had heard all her life. Do what's right, even when no one is watching. Honesty is worth more than anything money can buy. She closed the wallet firmly. It wasn't hers. As painful as it was, she knew exactly what she needed to do. So, she started walking toward the address. After hours of walking, she finally arrived. The mansion was like another world, tall, imposing, surrounded by sleek walls and a massive metal gate. Just looking at it made Lila's throat dry. She had no idea where to start. She approached slowly and pressed the intercom button. Nothing. She clapped her hands. Seconds later, a man appeared. He wore a dress shirt, black pants, and had a stern expression. He stopped behind the gate, looking her up and down with obvious disdain. "What do you want?" he asked impatiently. "I need to speak with Mr. James Carter." "It's important," the man scoffed, crossing his arms. "Mr. Carter isn't seeing anyone, especially people like you." Lila stood her ground, even as her face burned with shame. "Please, it's very important. I won't take much of his time." He let out a dry laugh. "Listen, we don't give out handouts here, all right? Go try somewhere else. This neighborhood isn't for you." She clutched the wallet against her chest, feeling her heart pound. "I'm not here to ask for anything. I just need to talk to him. It's serious. If he finds out I was here, and you didn't let me speak with him, you'll regret it." The man rolled his eyes. "Oh yeah? And why is that? What do you want with Mr. Carter?" "That's between me and him." The security guard frowned, suspicious. "You think you can fool someone here with this little act?" Lila took a deep breath. She was about to explode. This man had no idea what she was carrying, how her world was falling apart, and yet she had still chosen to do the right thing. "Please," she insisted, her voice steady, "just ask him to come here. If he says he doesn't want to see me, I'll leave. I promise." The guard still looked skeptical, but something in the way she spoke made him hesitate. After a few more seconds of staring at her, he grumbled, "Wait here." Lila let out a shaky breath as he disappeared behind the mansion walls. She stood there alone, staring at the grand entrance that looked more like a palace. The gate remained shut, the wallet still firm in her hands. Her eyes welled up, but she blinked hard. She wouldn't cry, not here, not now. Inside, James Carter was in his office, reviewing reports, when 3 sharp knocks sounded on his door. "What is it?" he asked, without looking up from his screen. "Sir, there's a woman at the gate. She says she needs to talk to you, but she's strange, looks like she lives on the street." James frowned. "And what does she want?" "She didn't say, just kept insisting. Wouldn't leave." James sighed lightly, resting his elbows on the desk. "Name?" "She didn't say, just asked to speak with you. Said it was important." The businessman thought for a moment. Normally, he would have refused without hesitation, but there was something about the guard's tone, a different kind of insistence. A small spark of curiosity nudged him from within. "All right," he replied, "I'm coming." Lila was still standing motionless when the gate finally started to open. She saw the man walking toward her, tall, imposing, wearing an elegant suit with a serious expression. It was him. James Carter stopped in front of the gate, his brow slightly furrowed, observing the woman with a tired look, worn-out clothes, and steady eyes. He had expected someone making a scene, maybe demanding something, but what he saw was different. Without another word, Lila held out the wallet to him. "I found this on 13th Street this morning." Her voice was low but firm. James took the wallet and quickly opened it. His eyes scanned each compartment. Everything was there: the money, the cards, the important documents, even notes with confidential contacts. He let out a slow breath, feeling a strange sense of relief. "You didn't take anything?" he asked, still surprised. "It wasn't mine," Lila replied. James looked up, studying her. She was unkempt, her hair carelessly tied back, her face pale from the cold, but there was something in her eyes, something strong, honest. "What's your name?" "Lila." "And why did you come all the way here?" She swallowed hard. She wasn't used to conversations like this, especially with someone like him. "Because it was the right thing to do. I wouldn't be able to sleep, knowing I kept something that wasn't mine." James nodded slowly. He was used to people who hid their real intentions, who approached him for personal gain. But this woman, with nothing in her hands and everything to lose, had done the right thing without expecting anything in return. James was silent for a moment. Then he looked at the guard. "Open the gate." "Sir?" The man seemed surprised. "She's coming in." Lila's eyes widened. "There's no need. I just wanted to return. And now you're going to have some coffee or tea or whatever you prefer. You did me a huge favor. Come in." Lila hesitated but stepped forward. She felt out of place, like a misplaced piece in a puzzle. "Make yourself comfortable," he said. "Have a seat. I'll be right back." A few minutes later, James returned with a cup of tea and a plate with 2 cheese rolls. "I hope you like them," he said, handing her the plate. She took it and murmured a barely audible "thank you." It was the first warm drink she had in days. "Do you live nearby?" James asked, sitting in the armchair next to her. Lila stared at the cup for a moment before answering. "Actually, I don't live anywhere. I've been on the streets for a few months now." James raised his eyebrows, surprised. "But you?" "I lost my job. My grandmother passed away. It was just the 2 of us. After she was gone, everything started falling apart: the rent, the bills, and before I knew it, I was alone. And then no one would hire me anymore." She shrugged, as if trying to lighten her own story, but her eyes revealed the exhaustion, the weight of sleepless nights, of constant hunger. "Even so, you returned my wallet," he said, breaking the silence. "Even though you could have taken it." Lila just nodded. There was nothing more to say. James studied her more closely. There was something about her, a quiet strength, a kind of honesty he rarely saw in people anymore. "I can help you," he said suddenly. Lila's eyes widened in surprise. "I don't want charity." "It's not charity, it's gratitude. What do you need?" She hesitated. "I just need a job. Any job." A fresh start. James was silent for a few seconds, still processing everything. "I'll think of something," he finally said. "Just give me a moment." Before he could continue, his phone vibrated in his pocket. When he pulled it out and looked at the screen, his expression changed. "I have to take this. Please wait here. Just a few minutes." Lila nodded, feeling a bit uneasy. James walked away through the house, pressing the phone to his ear. She remained in the spacious living room, sitting at the edge of the couch, as if she didn't want to leave a trace. Everything there was too beautiful, too clean, too expensive a place she clearly didn't belong to. As she sat in silence, she heard soft footsteps. Slowly, she turned toward the hallway. A small boy, about 6 years old, appeared in the doorway. He was wearing blue pajamas with stars and held a toy car in his hands. He stopped when he saw her and stared in silence. Lila gave him a gentle smile. "Hi." The boy took a hesitant step, then another. He moved closer, still quiet but curious. "What's your name?" he asked, his voice small but clear. The question caught Lila off guard. She hadn't expected any interaction, let alone a conversation. "Lila, and yours?" "Noah." She smiled wider. "That's a nice name. I like your car. Is it fast?" Noah nodded shyly and sat on the rug, pulling the toy car across the polished floor. Lila lowered herself slowly, sitting beside him, as if trying not to startle a little bird. "You know what's even better than a car?" she asked in a playful whisper. The boy looked up, curious. "A ramp." She grabbed a cushion from the couch and placed it at a slight angle on the floor. "How about we test a racetrack?" Noah placed the car at the top of the improvised ramp and gave it a push. The toy slid down until it bumped into one of the table legs. He looked at Lila and laughed a soft, genuine laugh, with a spark in his eyes that had seemed gone for a long time. Lila joined in, trying to hold back the emotion rising in her chest. "That car is a rocket," she said, excited. Across the hallway, standing still, James watched everything. His phone was off, still in his hand, but he stood frozen, as if he had just seen a ghost, his son laughing. His heart tightened. It had been 3 years since Noah smiled like that. Ever since Emily, his wife, passed away, the boy had completely shut down. No nanny had been able to get close to him. Psychologists, teachers, therapists, all had failed. Noah barely spoke, never interacted, and wouldn't even respond when someone talked to him. But now, in front of this woman he had just met, he was laughing. Unbelievable, James whispered to himself. The scene before him left him motionless. Lila was laughing with Noah, building another ramp with more cushions, while the boy stacked objects to create obstacles. Noah lifted the car, pointing at the cushion. "Do you think it will jump?" "Only one way to find out, pilot," Lila encouraged. The boy pushed the car with force. It flew into the air, flipped, and landed on its side with a soft thud. Noah's eyes widened, and he let out another spontaneous giggle. James felt his eyes sting. He walked back to the living room, trying to compose himself. Lila noticed his presence and immediately stood up. "I'm sorry, he came to talk to me," and James raised a hand. "Don't apologize. That was the most amazing thing I've seen in a long time." Noah looked at his father and, to his surprise, spoke without being prompted. "Dad, the car jumped." Lila made a ramp. James needed a second to take it in. "Did it really?" he asked, his voice slightly choked. Noah nodded with a proud smile. Lila, unsure, glanced at James. The emotion in his eyes was clear. Is he okay? He's better than he's been in 3 years." James looked away, took a deep breath, then turned back to Lila with intensity. "I was going to think of something I could do for you. Now I think I found it." Lila frowned, confused. "What do you mean? My son hasn't been the same since he lost his mother. He shut the world out. No professional, no matter how qualified, could break through his walls. But you." He paused, as if thinking out loud. "You just got here," and he spoke, laughed, played. Lila looked at Noah, who was now lying on the rug, spinning the car in the air. He just needed someone who wouldn't push him, someone who would just be there. James stepped closer. "I have an offer, but understand this isn't charity, it's trust." Lila met his gaze. "I'm listening. I want you to work here as my son's caregiver. You'll have a place to stay, food, a steady salary, and everything you need to rebuild your life. But more than anything, I want you to be there, for him to be the presence he hasn't had in so long." Lila blinked a few times, trying to process it. Her heart pounded. She didn't know what to say. She never imagined that doing the right thing, returning a lost wallet, could lead to something so life-changing. "Do you really trust me?" she asked, barely above a whisper. "I don't trust easily, but my son just showed me that I can trust you." She looked at Noah again. The boy was now drawing a car on a scrap of paper, fully focused. Lila took a deep breath. This was a chance, a fresh start, a home. "I accept," she said firmly. James held out his hand. Lila shook it. "Welcome." That night, Lila lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, her heart racing. The feeling was surreal. She could still smell the clean soap on the sheets, still hear James's voice in her head saying, "Welcome." She had never been welcomed anywhere before, not since she had lost her grandmother. After the old lady was gone, the world simply turned its back on her. She had tried everything, selling sweets, handing out resumes, asking for an opportunity, but nothing had worked. And now she was here, in a room inside a mansion, with a real closet, a bathroom just for her, and borrowed pajamas that still smelled of fabric softener. But it wasn't the luxury that impressed her, it was the chance to start over. The next morning, Lila walked down the stairs slowly. Her bare feet felt the soft touch of the expensive carpet. When she reached the kitchen, she found Mrs. Clara, the housekeeper, serving breakfast with quiet elegance. "Good morning, dear. Did you sleep well?" Lila nodded with a shy smile. "Better than I have in weeks, actually." The housekeeper smiled gently and placed a cup of tea on the table. Mr. Carter usually has coffee at 7:00. Little Noah at 8, he's a bit lazier. You can sit down, have something to eat. No one goes hungry here. Lila hesitated for a second. The hunger won. She sat down slowly and accepted a piece of warm bread. Her hands trembled slightly. She still felt out of place in this world, so different from her own. After finishing her meal, Clara led her to the backyard, where there was a small porch with cushions and a wide view of the lawn. The boy likes to play here, she explained. He doesn't talk much, but he has his moments. A few minutes later, Noah appeared, walking with his toy car in hand, still in his pajamas. When he saw Lila, he gave her a small smile. "Hi," he said, and sat on the floor right next to her, as if it was the most natural thing in the world. Lila sat down too, not saying much, just watching the boy play. She didn't need big speeches, just being there was enough. "The car is broken," Noah suddenly said. "Huh? Let me see." He handed her the toy, and Lila examined it carefully. The front wheel was loose. "Nothing a little tape can't fix." "Do you have magic tape around here?" The boy smiled, amused. "Magic tape?" "Yes, the tape that fixes everything, even flying toys." Noah let out a small laugh and ran off to get something from a drawer in the living room. When he returned, he was holding a regular piece of tape. "Will this work?" "It will. This is emergency magic tape." As they fixed the toy together, James watched from the second-floor office balcony. He held a cup of coffee in his hands, but his eyes were locked on the scene below. Lila sitting on the floor, her hair tied with an old elastic, wearing simple borrowed clothes, smiling gently at his son, who was now laughing out loud. It was almost impossible to believe. He tried to remember the last time he had heard such a spontaneous laugh from Noah. It had been on his 4th birthday, just before the accident. After losing his mother, the boy had gone silent. His world had shut down. James had tried everything: new toys, therapists, special schools, trained professionals. Nothing had worked. But now, a stranger, a homeless woman, had done what no one else could. That afternoon, James called her in for a conversation. "Lila, could you come here for a moment?" She entered the room with her head slightly lowered, a little unsure. "Yes, sir? You can call me James," he said, without taking his eyes off his laptop. "How was your morning?" "Good." "Noah, he's an amazing boy." James looked up. "You really think so?" Lila nodded. "He's quiet but observant, smart, and lonely sometimes. All a child needs is someone who listens without rushing, without judgment." James leaned back in his chair. "You understand children?" "No, but I used to be one who was alone for a long time too." James was silent for a few seconds. "You asked me for a job, and I gave you one. But what you did for Noah, that was more than just work. That was the act of someone who understands." Lila lowered her eyes. "I don't do this expecting anything in return. I just understand how he feels. It's like I know where it hurts." James crossed his arms and looked at her for a moment. "That's exactly what he needs. And so do I." The following days were a mix of discovery, adaptation, and small miracles. Lila began to set up a gentle routine with Noah: outdoor play in the morning, storytelling after lunch, short walks in the garden, and in the evening, drawing and soft music. Little by little, Noah started coming out of the bubble of silence he had been trapped in for years. He began talking more, laughing often, even humming children's songs when he thought no one was listening. James watched everything from a distance, noticing every change with a tight feeling in his chest. His own routine started changing too. He began coming home earlier, putting his phone away, and spending more time with his son. And every time he saw Lila, he felt something he couldn't explain. It was more than gratitude, it was a peace he hadn't felt since Emily's passing. One night, after putting Noah to bed, Lila went down to the kitchen. She was hungry, but hesitated when she saw James sitting at the table, holding a cup in his hands. "Sorry, I didn't mean to bother you. You're not bothering me. Would you like to sit?" She nodded and pulled out a chair. "Would you like some tea? If you have some." He got up, poured her a cup, and placed it in front of her. "Are you adjusting?" "More than I expected. It still doesn't feel real." "It's been very real for Noah." Lila gave a small smile. "He's doing better, isn't he?" "He is. And I don't know how to thank you for that." She shook her head. "You don't have to thank me. I'm happy for him." James stayed quiet, just watching her. "Have you ever thought about studying?" She looked at him, surprised. "Studying? College?" Is there a field you're interested in? Lila gave a small, humorless smile. That was always a distant dream. I barely finished high school. I had to drop everything to take care of my grandmother. And after she passed, surviving became the priority. James rested his elbows on the table. What if I told you I could help? Why? Because you're helping my son. You're giving him back something I thought was lost forever. Lila stayed silent, letting those words sink in. James continued, You're not just someone passing through. You're changing our lives. And maybe it's time for you to live yours too. The next morning, when she came down for breakfast, Lila found an envelope on the table with her name written in elegant letters. Inside, there was a bank card, an ID badge with James's company logo, and a sheet with instructions. Your work contract is active. Salary deposited on the first business day. All benefits included. She pressed the envelope against her chest. She had never had an ID badge with her name on it. She had never had a steady salary. She had never had security. And now she did not, because she tricked anyone, not because she begged, but because she was honest. That morning, Noah ran up to her with a drawing in his hands. I made this for you. Lila knelt down, carefully taking the paper. It was a house, a smiling sun, and 3 people holding hands. Who are they? She asked. Noah pointed. Me, you, Dad. Lila bit her lip, touched. It's beautiful. Noah threw his arms around her and whispered, You're like magic. Lila smiled, holding back tears. So are you, little one. Noah let go of the drawing with the ease of someone who trusts. And as Lila held it so gently, he smiled, not the shy, hesitant smile from before, but a smile of pure joy. Lila held the paper like a precious gift, and it was. Moments later, he ran to the living room with his favorite toy car, shouting that he had an idea for a new game. Lila followed, leaving the envelope with her name carefully on the table, as if she didn't want that moment to end. But deep down, she knew something inside her had already started to change. That afternoon, the mansion felt different. For the first time in years, the sound of toys filled the hallways. Noah dragged a box of colorful blocks, and Lila followed behind, carrying 2 cushions he called magic walls. This will be the secret entrance, Noah explained, already on his knees on the rug. No one can pass without the password. And what's the password? He looked at her with a serious expression. A hug. Lila opened her arms, and without hesitation, he ran to her, laughing. They rolled on the rug, surrounded by blocks and laughter. As the afternoon sun cast a golden glow across the floor, James came home in the middle of the afternoon. He had only left for a quick meeting, but something inside him, maybe a new kind of restlessness, made him want to get home earlier than usual. As he walked in, he heard a burst of laughter from the living room. He smiled to himself, shaking his head in a mix of surprise and disbelief. As he got closer, he saw Noah sitting on the rug, covered by a blanket that formed a makeshift tent, while Lila read aloud from a book about dragons that roared in pretend. James leaned against the doorway and crossed his arms, just watching. Noah looked light. The dark circles under his eyes from the past months seemed less noticeable. His posture was more relaxed, and there was something in his eyes that James hadn't seen since the last time. Emily hugged him brightness. When the story ended, Lila closed the book with a dramatic gesture, making Noah clap and laugh. One more, he begged, already heading to the bookshelf. Just one more, or we'll end up falling asleep right here, she replied with a knowing smile. That's when she noticed James. He didn't say anything, just gave her a discreet smile. Lila nodded in return and turned her attention back to Noah, who was now choosing a book about dragons that blew soap bubbles. James, however, stayed there for a few more minutes, as if trying to capture that moment in his memory. Later, Lila went to her room. She was exhausted, not physically, but emotionally. The joy of the day, combined with the quiet sense of safety she was starting to feel in that place, was something completely new. She sat on the bed and opened the notebook she had been carrying ever since she left her grandmother's house. It had more blank pages than written ones, but that night she felt like writing, "Today, a little boy hugged me and told me I'm magical. Maybe he's right, or maybe he just needs to believe that magic exists in the world. I need to believe it too." She carefully closed the notebook and placed it in the drawer. The night was peaceful, no noise, no fear. For the first time in a long while, Lila slept deeply. The next morning, Lila went down to the kitchen and found Miss S. Clara preparing breakfast with her usual calm and organized manner. But this time, There was a second plate on the table, scrambled eggs, fruit, and a glass of juice. "Is this for me?" The boy asked for it, Mrs. Clara said with a small smile. "He said Lila needs to eat like him because getting strong is important." Lila chuckled quietly and sat down. A few moments later, Noah walked into the kitchen and went straight to her, as if it had always been part of his routine. He sat next to her, grabbed a banana, and started talking about a dream he had about an astronaut giraffe. James appeared a few minutes later, already in his suit. "Ready to leave. Everything okay here?" he asked. Noah answered with a big smile. "Lila's going to help me build a rocket today." James raised an eyebrow, surprised. "A rocket?" "Yes, with boxes and aluminum foil." Lila just shrugged, as if saying, "You haven't seen anything yet. Just let me know if you plan on taking off," James said, laughing. During breakfast, James stayed longer than usual. He watched how easily Noah talked to Lila, how comfortable he seemed, and how she truly listened to him with attention, without distractions, without rushing. Before leaving, James gently touched Lila's shoulder. "I'd like to talk to you later if you're free. Meet me in the office this afternoon." She nodded, a bit surprised. He just smiled and walked out the front door. The morning was all about building the rocket. Lila and Noah used 2 large cardboard boxes, tape, colored paper, and the aluminum foil Mrs. Clara reluctantly gave them. In the end, the rocket had drawn on windows, paper wings, and even a red ignition button. "This is better than any toy in the store," Lila said, watching the boy spin inside the box, as if he were in space. "And way more fun," Noah replied. After a quick snack in the garden, Noah got tired and asked to take a nap. Lila took him to his room, read him a short story, and stayed until he fell asleep. Once he was asleep, she headed to the office. James was at his desk, typing on his laptop. When he saw her enter, he closed the screen and motioned to the chair across from him. "Thanks for coming." Lila sat down, trying to hide her nervousness. "Is everything okay?" "Yes, actually, more than okay." He leaned slightly forward, resting his arms on his knees. "I wanted to talk to you about something I've been thinking about since this morning." Lila just listened, waiting. "I realized that, ever since you arrived, my son hasn't just started smiling again, he's come back to life. Before, he was just getting through the days. Now he looks forward to them, to spending time with you, to the next game. And that is priceless." She swallowed hard, unsure of what to say. "So, I thought maybe it would be fair for you to have something too. Something that's yours." Lila frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" James opened a folder on the desk and slid it toward her. "This is a technical course program, with both in-person and online classes, educational psychology. It's directly related to what you're already doing. And if you're interested, I'll cover all the costs, materials, transportation, everything." Lila's eyes widened in surprise. "James, this is a lot." "It's not. It's the least I can do. You have talent, you have empathy. You have a gift, and more than that, you have the heart that many professionals out there are missing." She hesitated. "But what if I can't do it? You already have. Look at Noah, and look at yourself." Lila lowered her eyes, trying to hold back her emotions. "No one has ever believed in me like this before. Then it's time for you to start believing." That night, after Noah fell asleep, Lila stepped outside into the garden and sat on the wooden bench beneath the oldest tree on the property. The breeze was gentle, and the sky was clear. The stars shone brightly. James appeared a little later, carrying 2 mugs of tea. He handed one to her and sat down beside her. "I like this place," he said. "Emily used to come here whenever she needed to think. I can see why. It feels like the world slows down here, and sometimes we need that." Lila held the cup with both hands. The steam rose, warming her face. "You blame yourself for everything, don't you?" The question came unexpectedly. James turned slowly. "I'm sorry," she said quickly. "I didn't mean to intrude." "You're right," he sighed. "I was on the phone with her when the accident happened. The call dropped, and then there was only silence." Lila didn't say anything. She just let her presence fill the space. "I shut down from everything, from everyone, even from Noah. And even though I was physically here, I wasn't really here." He turned to look at her. "But you brought him back. And in a way, you brought me back too." Lila smiled, feeling her heart beat faster. "I just listened when no one else did. And that changes everything." The next morning, Lila handed James the completed application form. "If the offer still stands, I want to try." James gave her a sincere smile. "It stands more than ever." She held on to the paper for a moment before letting it go, and as she did, she felt like she was leaving the past behind. The morning started quieter than usual. Lila woke up before the alarm she didn't even have yet, put on the outfit she had set aside the night before, and walked downstairs carefully, trying not to make a sound. As she passed through the living room, she noticed the cushions were neatly arranged, and Noah's toys were no longer scattered everywhere. It felt strange to see the place without his colors. In the kitchen, Mrs. Clara was making coffee as always, but her expression seemed lighter. "Good morning, dear." "Good morning. Mr. James asked you to meet him in the garden after breakfast. He said it was important." Lila frowned. There was no urgency in the housekeeper's voice, but something about her words made Lila's stomach tighten a little. She sat down, drank her tea without really tasting it, and a few minutes later made her way to the back garden. James was there, standing in front of the glass greenhouse, tending to the plants with unusual focus. He wore a blue shirt with the sleeves rolled up, the same pants as always, and seemed lost in thought. When he saw her, he smiled. "You got here fast. Mrs. Clara said it was important." "It is." He took a step to the side and pointed to the wooden bench near the fountain. She followed, trying to hide her nervousness. "First of all," James said, sitting beside her, "I want you to know that nothing is wrong, quite the opposite. I've just been thinking about some things." Lila stayed quiet, waiting. "Since you arrived, everything changed. Noah changed, the house changed, I changed." He crossed his arms over his chest, and I realized it's not just about work, it's about presence. She didn't say anything, but her heart was beating faster. "There's something about you, Lila, that brings peace, that transforms the environment without you even realizing it. And I'm not saying this out of gratitude, it's deeper than that." Lila looked away, feeling self-conscious. "I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. Just listen." He took a deep breath, as if carefully choosing his words. "I have an event this week, a formal business dinner. It's important, and I wanted to invite you." She turned to him, surprised. "Invite me?" "Yes, to go with me." Lila blinked a few times, trying to process. "But why?" "Because I want you there, and because I think you deserve to be seen for who you really are, strong, intelligent, elegant, even if the world doesn't know it yet." Lila felt her face grow warm. "James, I don't know if this is a good idea. I don't even have anything to wear, and people might not understand. I'm just—" "You are the woman who changed my son's life. That's enough for me." She hesitated, confused, moved, and at the same time unsure. "It's just a dinner." He gave her a small smile. "It's an invitation. The rest is up to you." In the days that followed, the idea of the dinner became a quiet shadow that followed Lila everywhere. It wasn't heavy, but it wasn't light either. Noah was as energetic as ever, now obsessed with building castles out of shoe boxes and sticking little flags in the windows. But Lila, she found herself thinking too much. At times, she felt excited about the possibility of being around people, wearing something beautiful, and being looked at as an equal. In other moments, she remembered every cruel word she'd ever heard on the streets. "You don't belong here. This place isn't for you. Go back to where you came from." But where did she belong now? The night before the dinner, James showed up at her door, holding a box. Lila was sitting on the bed, reading through the course materials he had helped enroll her in. "Got a minute?" "Sure." He stepped in and handed her the box. "It's for you." "What's this?" "An outfit for the dinner. I know you said you didn't have anything, so I asked my sister for help. She's got good taste." Lila carefully opened the lid. Inside was a simple yet elegant navy blue dress light, delicate fabric with a cut that looked tailor-made. Alongside, it was a small box with a pair of subtle earrings and a pair of shoes. She couldn't say anything. She just stared at the items as if they were from another world. "I can't accept this, James. I don't want you to think I'm here because I don't think that, not for a second. Everything you are has got nothing to do with what you wear. But if I can give you a little comfort, I want to do that." She swallowed hard, her eyes still on the box. "Thank you. You'll look beautiful," he said before leaving. The next day, as Mrs. Clara helped Noah with his bath, Lila entered the room and looked at the dress hanging up. She took a deep breath, like someone preparing to jump off a cliff. She carefully put the dress on, styled her hair in a simple bun, put in the earrings, and finally slipped on the shoes. When she looked at herself in the mirror, for a moment, she didn't recognize the woman staring back. Was that her? She descended the stairs slowly, her heart racing. When she reached the living room, she saw James waiting. He wore a dark suit, a silver tie, and stood with a confident posture. But when he saw her, for a second, his composure broke. Wow. Lila bit her lip, unsure of where to put her hands. "Is everything okay? You look stunning." She blushed. "Thank you." He offered his arm. "Ready?" She nodded and accepted the gesture. The hotel ballroom was large, with sparkling chandeliers and well-dressed people everywhere. James guided Lila naturally, not minding the curious looks. Some greeted him with respect, others with surprise, but he kept moving forward, as if nothing affected him. "Are you okay?" he asked quietly, as they neared the reserved table. "I'm trying to look calmer than I feel," he laughed. "You're doing great, but if you want, we could sneak out through the kitchen." Lila smiled. "Let's at least wait for dessert." During dinner, Lila stayed mostly quiet. She observed, listened, and responded politely. James, on the other hand, was completely at ease, but the whole time, whenever he could, he looked at her. And whenever he did, it felt like the world around them quieted. After dessert, when some of the guests started leaving, James leaned in and said, "Do you want to take a walk?" Lila nodded. They left the ballroom through a side door and walked into a small garden lit by tiny lights hanging from the trees. The sound of the fountain filled the air with a rare kind of peace. "Why did you bring me here?" she asked. James stopped walking and looked at her. "Because I wanted you to see what it's like to be looked at the right way." She furrowed her brow slightly. "The right way?" With respect, with admiration, with enchantment. Lila looked away, nervous. "James, I know what you must be thinking, that we live in different worlds, that none of this makes sense. But Lila, since you came into my life, I've never been the same." She stared at him, surprised. "You're saying that?" "I'm saying I'm falling in love with you." Lila opened her mouth, but no words came out. James took a step closer. "I'm not asking for anything right now. I'm just being honest, because you deserve that too." She felt her eyes start to tear up. "I need some time. I'll give you all the time you need. I was just a man who hadn't smiled in 3 years, and now I can't stop smiling." She laughed through the tears. "James, it's okay, Lila. I just wanted you to know. The rest will build slowly." She took a deep breath, trying to organize her thoughts. But deep down, something inside her already knew she would never be able to look at him the same way again. On the way back from the dinner, the silence in the car was different. It wasn't uncomfortable, it was dense, filled with unspoken thoughts. Lila looked out the window, the city lights reflecting on the glass, as she tried to make sense of what she was feeling. James's words still echoed inside her like a wave rolling in and out. "I'm falling in love with you." She didn't know how to respond, but she also couldn't ignore it. James kept his eyes on the road. There was no rush, no expectation, just the certainty that he had done what needed to be done, told the truth. When they arrived, James stepped out first and walked around the car to open the door for Lila. She gave him a shy look of thanks, and as she passed him, she felt the warmth of his quiet gesture. Noah was already asleep. Mrs. Clara had said he had gone to bed right after dinner and hadn't woken up since. Lila went up to check on him. Seeing him curled up in the middle of the bed filled her chest with a quiet tenderness. She walked downstairs in silence, thinking James was already in his room, but she found him in the living room, sitting alone with a glass of wine in his hands. The dim light reflected a mix of exhaustion and serenity in his eyes. "It's late," she said softly. "I know. I just haven't been able to sleep yet." Lila hesitated. "Do you want me to leave you alone?" James looked at her for a moment, then shook his head gently. "Stay for a bit, just to talk." She sat down on the couch beside him, not too close, but not too far. "Do you regret it?" she asked. "Saying what you said? No. I would only regret it if I had kept it to myself." Lila looked down at her hands. "I don't know what to think yet. It's all so new, so fast. I understand. And what if? What if this makes everything complicated? What about Noah?" James carefully placed his glass on the coffee table. "Lila, if I thought this could put you in a difficult position, I'm sorry. I don't want to pressure you or confuse you. I just wanted to be honest, because you deserve that." She looked at him. "I'm not afraid of you. I'm afraid of myself." "Why?" "Because, for the first time, I feel like I can trust someone, and that's scary. When you come from where I come from, trust isn't natural, it's risky." James nodded slowly. "Then we'll take it slow, no rush, no expectations. Just being." She smiled, and it was genuine. Thank you. You've already thanked me enough. Lila stood up with a gentle motion. Good night, James. Good night, Lila. The next morning, Noah woke up earlier than usual. He appeared in the kitchen in his pajamas, his hair messy, and a sleepy smile on his face. Is Lila awake, Miss S? Clara pointed to the back porch. She's outside with her notebook. Noah ran barefoot, and when he saw Lila sitting on the bench with her knees tucked up, he grinned. Want to play? She quickly closed her notebook and smiled back. Always. Can we build a ship today? A ship? Where did that idea come from? I dreamed we were sailing the ocean. You were the captain and Dad was the cook. Lila burst into laughter. Dad a cook? I have to see that. He burned the eggs in my dream, Noah giggled. Later, when James came downstairs for breakfast, he found them in the yard, surrounded by boxes and ropes. Lila was wearing a newspaper hat, and Noah was holding a spoon like a sword. Did I wake up in a cartoon? James asked, raising an eyebrow. We're at sea, Noah shouted. And you're the cook. Are you making pancakes? James pretended to be offended. So you put me to work? Lila laughed. Of course. Every ship needs a full crew. James pretended to think. All right, but my pancakes come with a surprise filling. Noah's eyes widened. Is it jam? Pickles? Yuck. By the end of the afternoon, Lila went upstairs to take a shower. James was on the library porch, reading some contracts, when he heard footsteps behind him. James? It was Lila. She held a signed enrollment form, and the documents needed to start the technical course he had suggested. It's decided, she said. I'm going to try. James stood up. That's wonderful, Lila. Really. I was scared. I still am. But if I wait to stop being afraid, I'll never move forward. Fear means you're heading towards something important. She took a deep breath. Thank you for believing in me. Thank you for showing me that believing in people is still worth it. They stood in silence for a moment, eyes locked. Well, I have some reading to finish, she said, breaking the moment with a shy smile. All right. Oh, Lila? She turned at the door. Yes, this is going to be a great beginning. Throughout the week, James and Lila started running into each other more often outside of their time with Noah, sometimes at the cafe, other times at the library, or even in the kitchen when she was making something she had learned from her grandmother. Their conversations became more natural. Their glances lasted longer. Their silences felt fuller. One evening, while Lila was washing the dishes, James walked up to her, holding a glass of juice. Need some help? Do you know how to wash dishes? I know how to run multi-million-dollar companies, but dishes? That's a challenge. Then start by drying. He grabbed a towel and stood beside her. They worked in silence for a few minutes until James spoke. Do you believe people can find their way back to each other, even after getting lost? Lila thought for a moment. I do, but only if they want to, and if there's someone waiting for them on the other side. James nodded. I lost myself after Emily was gone. Everything lost its color. Noah became my only focus. But now, sometimes I see a glimpse of light where there used to be only darkness. Lila looked at him gently. And what will you do with that light? He held her gaze for a few seconds, then gave a small smile. Try not to put it out. The next morning, Lila went downtown to buy supplies for her course. James had given her a company card for study-related expenses, but she refused to spend more than necessary. When she returned, she found Noah in the garden, waiting for her with a crumpled flower in his hands. This is for you, he said. Wow, it's beautiful. I picked it from the garden. Mrs. Clara got mad, but I told her it was special. Lila hugged him. It's the most special flower I've ever received. Later that afternoon, Lila walked up to James with an envelope. This is what's left of what you gave me. I only bought what I needed. Lila, you don't have to. Yes, I do. I want you to know I'm grateful, but I don't want to take advantage of your generosity. He took the envelope, looked at her and said, You're one of the most honest people I've ever met. She smiled. And I'm just getting started. James took a deep breath, like he wanted to say more, but he held back. I know. Later that night, James walked into the living room. He found Lila sitting on the rug with Noah asleep in her lap. She was gently running her fingers through his hair, a peaceful look in her eyes. He fell asleep here. He couldn't stay awake until the story was over. James stepped closer, crouched down, and carefully picked Noah up. The boy curled up against his father with a deep sigh. Lila watched. You two have a beautiful bond. James looked at her as he stood up. He started smiling again because of you. He just needed to remember how. And me? Lila bit her lip. Maybe you just need to trust what you're feeling. James paused at the hallway door. What if I already am? She didn't answer, but her smile said it all. Mornings at the mansion had changed. The silence that once filled the halls was now replaced by sounds that had been missing for a long time, running footsteps, muffled laughter, curious questions, and even children's songs playing at the lowest volume. Noah woke up early, almost every day, full of excitement no one could quite explain except Lila. She was the reason. And to James, she was the answer to everything that had been happening. That week, something new had started. Noah began drawing scenes from their daily life, small, colorful pages, with pictures of him and Lila in the garden, cooking together, or inside a cardboard spaceship. The colors were bright, and more than that, the smiles were always there. One afternoon, while organizing the playroom drawers, Lila found one of his drawings. It was a house. At the top, he had written, "My home." Inside, he had drawn himself, Lila, and James holding hands. She stood there, holding that piece of paper like it was priceless. Mrs. Sayas. Clara, who had mostly been an observer until then, started to step in more. One day, while slicing fruit in the kitchen, she looked at Lila with a smile that held both admiration and understanding. "The boy came back to life," she said without looking up. And not because someone told him to smile. Lila was washing dishes. She turned slowly. "I just stayed close. He's the one who decided to open up. People only open up when they feel safe." Mrs. Clara wiped her hands on a dish towel. "And not just anyone can offer that kind of safety." Lila smiled but didn't reply. She still found it hard to accept compliments, but deep down she knew something had changed. On Friday night, James got home later than usual. Meetings had run long, and he lost track of time. When he walked through the door, the clock was already nearing 10. He was exhausted, but still, he went straight to Noah's room. He opened the door slowly and found his son fast asleep next to the bed on the mattress. Lila pulled out every night. She was also sleeping, her face calm, a closed book resting on her chest. James stood there for a moment, just watching. It was a simple scene, but it hit him deeply. Since Emily's passing, he hadn't seen his son sleep so peacefully. And he never imagined that it would be another woman, someone who had been a stranger just days ago, who would bring that sense of peace back. He walked back downstairs quietly. He poured himself a glass of water but didn't drink it. He just stood there in the kitchen, feeling the world move slowly around him. The next morning, Noah walked into James's office, holding a box. "Dad, can I show you something?" James closed his laptop. Of course. The boy climbed onto the leather chair, set the box on the desk, and started pulling out drawings he had made during the week. Each one captured a different moment, Lila pushing him on the swing, the two of them making pancakes, the house glowing with stars, drawn on the ceiling. James looked at them in silence, paying close attention. "You drew all this?" Noah nodded with a shy smile. "I like keeping good things." James gently touched one of the papers. "Do you miss Mom?" The boy was quiet for a few seconds, then nodded again. "But now I miss her less." James swallowed hard. "Why?" "Because now there's Lila, and when she's here, my heart doesn't feel so heavy." The words hit directly, without hesitation. James felt his eyes sting, but he didn't let the emotion take over completely. He pulled his son into a silent, tight hug. Later, when Lila walked into the office with a cup of tea, she found the drawings still spread across the desk. "He showed you?" James looked up. "He did all of them, and he told me something I'll never forget." Lila set the cup down carefully. "Noah has a rare sensitivity. It's like he understands the world without needing many words. He said his heart doesn't feel heavy when you're around." Lila froze for a second. "He said that?" James nodded. "And I understand what he meant. I feel it too." She looked away, swallowing hard. "James, I'm not pressuring you, Lila, but we can't keep pretending this is just a working relationship. It's growing, and I can't ignore it." Lila slowly sat in the chair across from him. "I can't pretend either. But I'm afraid." "Of what?" "Of believing I can be part of this and then being cast aside or not being enough." "You already are. Since the day you walked through that door with my wallet in your hands." She let out a small laugh, trying to hold back the emotion. "Who would have thought a lost wallet would change everything? I lost so much back then, Lila. But maybe now I found what really matters." In the days that followed, things kept changing, even in silence. Noah started asking Lila to stay for dinner. He wanted her to hear the stories he read, He wanted her to see his new card trick. He wanted her to walk him to school, even though the driver was available. And James started checking the time more often at work. He began turning down evening meetings. He started coming home because he wanted to, not out of duty, but because it felt like home. One night, after putting Noah to bed, Lila was making tea in the kitchen when James walked in. Saying nothing, he leaned against the counter, just watching her. "What is it?" she asked, smiling. "Nothing. I just like seeing you here." "Making tea?" "No, here." She was quiet for a few seconds, stirring the liquid in her cup. "You make me feel at home, too." James stepped closer slowly. "Lila," she looked up. "Yes? I know you're still figuring this out, but when you're ready, I want to show you a world that has nothing to do with status or wealth, a world where we can just be." Lila smiled. "What if I've already been in that world, and I just now realized it?" James gently touched her hand. "Then welcome." On Saturday, Noah ran to Lila's room with an unexpected request. "Can you help me with a surprise?" "Of course. What are you planning?" "I want to make dinner for Dad." Lila raised her eyebrows in surprise. "Dinner?" "Yeah, he always comes home tired. I want to make him smile." Lila knelt in front of him. "And what's on the menu?" "Rice, eggs, and grape juice, classic combination," she joked. "But let's make it look nicer." In the afternoon, Noah chopped vegetables with a toy knife, set the table with colorful napkins, even drew a menu with wobbly letters, "Dad's Happy Dinner." When James arrived, he found the room dimly lit, the table set, and Noah wearing a huge apron with Lila smiling beside him. "What is this? Special dinner?" the boy said, his eyes shining. "I cooked!" James pretended to be surprised. "Then I have to try everything." Dinner was simple but filled with laughter. Lila and James kept exchanging glances. There was something there that no words could explain, but it was clear in their eyes. By the end of the night, after Noah had fallen asleep, Lila stepped out onto the porch for some fresh air. James followed, carrying 2 cups of tea. "I want you to know something," he said, handing her the cup. "What?" "I'm not in a hurry, but I'm not giving up on you." Lila looked at him, her eyes filled with emotion. "I know." The sky was clear, and the sun peeked shyly through the clouds, as if it knew this day deserved a special light. Noah, excited since the night before, bounced around while Lila packed a bag with fruit, water, and a picnic blanket. "Dad, are you ready?" he shouted from the hallway. "Almost," James called back, trying to finish putting on his sneakers. "Just give me 2 more seconds, astronaut." Lila smiled as she listened to them talking like they were on a space mission. Seeing James so lighthearted was something new and wonderful. He looked younger, more at ease, more alive. A short while later, they left together. James drove with one arm resting on the window, Noah in the back seat making up a song, and Lila in the front, watching the city go by, as if she were seeing it for the first time. They arrived at the park early. There weren't many people around. A few kids played on the swings, and couples strolled quietly along tree-lined paths. Noah took off running as soon as he saw the playground. "He didn't even wait for us to get out of the car," Lila said, laughing. "That's a good sign." James opened the door and glanced at her. "It means he trusts that we'll be there when he looks back." She nodded in silent agreement. They spread out the blanket under a big tree, with a view of the slide. Lila took off her shoes and sat cross-legged, while James leaned against the trunk, watching her from a distance. "Have you ever thought about having kids?" he asked suddenly. Lila looked at him, surprised. "I have, but I never thought it could actually happen, not with the life I used to have." "And now?" She smiled softly. "Now I feel like anything is possible." James lowered his eyes for a moment, then looked back at her. "You're amazing, Lila." She looked away, unsure how to respond. She was still getting used to how directly James saw her, not as someone who needed saving, but as someone who mattered. A few minutes later, Noah ran back, his face flushed, breathing hard. "Lila, come with me on the slide." "Oh no, now?" she asked, pretending to be exhausted. "Now." She laughed, got up, and ran with him to the playground, climbing the steps as if she were scared. Noah slid down first, cheering. Lila followed, laughing loudly. James watched from a distance, arms crossed, unable to hide his smile. That image of the two of them playing, having fun, was exactly what he never knew he needed to see. After the slide, they went on the seesaws, the merry-go-round, and finally, Noah's most anticipated moment, the picnic. They sat under the tree, sharing sandwiches, apple slices, and cookies. "This is the best day of my life," Noah declared with his mouth full. Lila laughed. "Even better than the day you got your toy rocket?" "Way better." James looked at Lila and joked, "You outdid my gift." "Congrats." "It's the sandwich's fault," she replied, holding up her sandwich like a trophy. Their laughter blended with the gentle sound of the wind rustling through the leaves. Later, as the sun started to set, Noah lay down on the blanket and fell asleep with his head resting on Lila's lap. She ran her fingers gently through his hair, while James sat closer, watching in silence. "I feel different when I'm with you," he said softly. Lila looked up at him. "What do you mean?" "I remember who I was before the pain." She didn't respond. She just placed her hand over his in a steady, calm gesture. "You're still that man, James. You just forgot." He turned his hand to fully hold hers, and they stayed like that, with Noah sleeping between them, as if that moment was meant to last forever. The morning after their day in the park, Lila woke up to the soft sound of rain tapping against the window. The house was quiet, but her heart felt restless. She could still feel the warmth of the day before the laughter, the gentle touch of James's hand over hers, Noah sleeping peacefully between them. She walked downstairs slowly, her bare feet touching the cold floor, and found James in the kitchen, making coffee. His back was to her, his white shirt slightly wrinkled, his hair a little messy. The scene was simple, yet full of meaning. "Good morning," she said softly. He turned around with a smile. "Good morning, Lila." She stepped closer, reaching for a clean cup from the cabinet. "Did you sleep well?" "Better than I have in years," he said, pouring coffee for her. "And you?" "I still feel like I'm floating because of the park, because of everything, because of what we're building." James moved a little closer, his eyes locked on hers. "I thought a lot last night." Lila tightened her grip on the cup handle. "About what?" "About what I want moving forward, about you, about Noah. And I realized, I can't imagine a future without you by our side." She swallowed hard. "James, I know it's fast, it's unexpected, but what I feel isn't impulsive, it's clear and strong." He took a step forward. "And that's why there's something I want to do the right way." Lila stood still, her heart racing. "Now?" James set his cup in the sink, stepped away for a moment, and returned holding a small blue velvet box. Lila froze. He walked up to her, opened the box, revealing a delicate ring with a small but shining stone. "Lila, you walked into my life on an ordinary day, carrying only a lost wallet, but you gave me back more than I ever thought. I had lost peace, lightness, hope. You brought my son back to me, and you brought me back to myself. I know you're scared. I am too, but I believe in us. And I want to walk this path with you, not as my employee, but as my partner, my wife." Lila brought a hand to her mouth, her eyes welling up. "You want to marry me?" "Yes, with everything that comes with it, the past, the present, and whatever lies ahead. I want you by my side today, tomorrow, every day." She looked at him for a moment, holding her breath. Then, with a trembling smile, she whispered, "I do." James closed his eyes for a second, relieved, and gently slipped the ring onto her finger. Then he pulled her into a tight, silent embrace where they fit perfectly together. "I never imagined this for myself," she murmured against his chest. "Me neither, but it's the best unexpected thing that's ever happened to me." At lunchtime, Noah came running into the kitchen, his feet wet, holding a handful of flowers he had picked in the rain. "Lila, look. I got these for you." She knelt to hug him. "They're beautiful, but you're going to catch a cold like this. Dad said you're going to be my new mom. Is it true?" Lila glanced at James, who was leaning against the counter, smiling. "Yes, buddy," she answered, her voice unsteady. Noah threw his arms around her neck. "I always wanted this. Now I have a real family." Lila held the little boy tightly, her heart overflowing. "We've always wanted you too." James stepped forward and hugged them both. And there, in that small bundle of arms and hearts pressed together, there was more love than in any grand party or empty promise. It was real. It was true. That night, Lila sat alone on the porch for a few minutes, looking at the moon through the clouds. She still remembered the sidewalk where she had found the wallet, the empty stomach, the biting cold, the loneliness screaming inside her. It all felt so far away, as if it belonged to another life. Now she wore a ring on her finger, and more than that, she carried the certainty that she had been seen, chosen, loved, When James joined her, carrying 2 cups of tea, he sat beside her in silence. "You know," he said after a while, "Emily always said that love is what we do when no one is watching." Lila looked at him sideways. "And do you think you're doing it right?" "No doubt about it." She rested her head on his shoulder, closing her eyes for a moment. "Me neither." The wedding took place 3 weeks later in a simple garden, surrounded by colorful flowers and genuine smiles. Nothing grand, nothing extravagant, but everything was perfectly meaningful. Lila wore a light dress with delicate lace, and her hair was tied in a soft braid. She wasn't wearing expensive jewelry or heavy makeup. She carried only the light in her eyes, the light of someone who had overcome life's challenges, and in her heart, the peace of knowing she was chosen with love. James wore a dark blue suit and hadn't taken his eyes off her since the moment she appeared at the garden entrance, holding Noah's hand. "Come on, Mom," the boy whispered, excited. Lila smiled, squeezing his hand gently. "I'm right here, my love." It was Noah who walked her to James, taking small, proud steps, carrying a little box with the wedding rings. All eyes were on them, a picture that spoke for itself. When it was time for the vows, James spoke first. "Lila, when I met you, I had lost faith in so many things, in hope, in the future, in love. But you walked into my home, bringing more than honesty. You brought life. Your presence healed my son, and it healed me too. Today, more than just saying I do, I give you my whole heart, and I promise never to let it fall again." Lila took a deep breath. Tears were already rolling down Miss S. Clara's face in the front row. "I came here afraid, with nothing, carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders and a wounded soul. But then I found you and Noah, and a house that became a home. You didn't save me. James, you saw me. And I promise, I will never let pain take the place of the love we have now." They exchanged rings under a clear sky and a gentle breeze, as if even the universe was celebrating their union. The reception was joyful, but simple music, chosen by Noah. Homemade treats from Miss S. Clara, laughter everywhere. Lila danced with James under the warm glow of string lights hanging from the trees, while Noah ran around with his school friends, dressed in a tiny suit. Later that night, James pulled Lila aside to a quiet corner of the garden, under a pergola decorated with fairy lights. "Did you know I've always hated parties?" he said with a smile. "So why are you loving this one?" "Because you're in it." Lila laughed, and he pulled her close, wrapping her in a gentle embrace. "I never thought I'd be this happy again." "Me neither. But sometimes life surprises us. Sometimes it saves us." The days that followed were as light as spring mornings. Their home life changed, but there was no rush. Lila still took care of Noah, still made his snacks, still read him bedtime stories, but now she did it as a wife and as a mother. Noah, in turn, seemed to grow more each day, his confidence, his energy, the spark in his eyes. He was different whole. One night, as they were watching a movie together in the living room, the boy curled up in Lila's lap and whispered, "Mom?" "Yes, my love. We'll never be apart again, right?" She kissed his hair. "Never. You're mine forever." A few months later, Lila walked into the room with a different smile. James was reading a report on the couch when he saw her approaching with her hands behind her back. "Everything okay?" he asked, curious. She bit her lower lip and handed him a small white box. James took it and slowly opened it. Inside was a pregnancy test with 2 clear lines. He looked up, surprised, and she nodded before he even had to ask, "We're having a baby?" "Yes. You're going to be a dad again, James." He jumped up, laughing and crying at the same time. He hugged Lila tightly, spinning her around in the middle of the room like a kid, then kissed her forehead with all the love in his heart. "This is more than I ever imagined for my life." "Me too. But look where we are now." At dinner that night, Noah didn't immediately understand why they were smiling so much. But when Lila knelt beside him and took his hand, everything became clear. "There's a little baby growing in here, my love," she said, placing his hand on her belly. Noah's eyes widened. "Really? Really? I'm going to be a big brother?" "You sure are, champ," James confirmed. Noah was silent for a few seconds, then smiled with pride. "I'm going to protect them, just like you protect us, Dad." James felt his heart swell. That sentence meant everything. Time passed. The baby was born, a little girl named Rose, after the grandmother Lila had loved so much. Small, strong, with bright eyes and an easy smile, and the house once too big for a man and a grieving boy was now full of life, with the smell of fresh baked cake, the sound of scattered toys, and laughter echoing down the hallways. Lila had become more than a wife, more than a mother. She was the heart of this new life. James, in turn, was no longer just a CEO. He had become a whole man. One evening, sitting on their usual porch with their children fast asleep, James held Lila's hand and looked up at the starry sky. "Do you still remember the day you returned that wallet to me?" "How could I forget? That day, I didn't think I was just losing my wallet. I was losing myself. But now I understand. I didn't lose anything. I gained something, because that wallet led me to you." Lila rested her head on his shoulder. "And I thought I was just doing the right thing. But without knowing it, I was walking straight toward the place where my heart would finally find peace." James wrapped his arms around her, and they stayed there in silence, listening only to the sound of the leaves dancing in the wind. And in that simple moment, they had everything they needed: the present, the past left behind, and a whole future ahead. What did you think of Lila and James's story? Share your thoughts in the comments. On a scale from 0 to 10, how would you rate this story?